Hey guys, welcome to the Bright Planning channel, and today we're going to be talking about the I Blew It story of Bongani Zulu from episode 7 season 3 and what went wrong. Let's get into it. So in this episode, we look at Bongani Zulu's story from I Blew It as he was, navigating how he received funds due to an accident that he went through. It's so unfortunate that this is one of those typical stories whereby somebody that did not necessarily grow up in the best family situation, grew up in poverty, gets access to a lot of money, and the subsequent story of I Blew It happened whereby he actually lost all of the money that he received. Once again, stories like this really break my heart, besides the lack of education to help them or that person to use that money effectively, but also the fact that RAF related claims is once again those type of claims which are linked to you losing some sort of ability of your body in order to get a claim that seeks to compensate you for that event. And it's so disheartening when that money gets misused and it ends as quickly as it was held for, and the effects on the body are for life. So yeah, very, very difficult to handle that, but let's get into the analysis. The source of funds were due to an RAF claim, road accident fund, whereby Bongani was involved in an accident whereby he was ran over by a car as he was coming from a meeting. The car ran him over because he couldn't see the car because the car did not have lights at night. It was around about 8 p.m. or so, and the car hit him, damaged his legs and knees, and he had to go through an operation. He couldn't walk. He basically completely obliterated his quality of life, and these are the grounds that he claimed his RAF claim, and he got the sum of 1.4 million in terms of his RAF claim. What went right? Although Bongani grew up in poverty, his grandmother and his aunt raised him. This was something that was quite positive for him as they did a lot for him. Besides their poor background, his aunt was unable to finish school, and his grandmother had only so much. I mean, the pension, or not pension, but the grants that she received, as well as whatever ways that they were managing, as she illustrates in the story, that they found a way. They didn't necessarily go completely hungry at night, but they found a way. Another positive thing is that at least Bongani had a sense of wanting to improve his life. So at one point he opted to volunteer at a car wash, and instead of just being paid instead of not getting any money as a volunteer, he actually was getting paid due to the wonderful work that he was doing at the car wash. And that was something that was positive for him. It gave him confidence somehow, and it just helped him to find a way in life and supposedly contribute to his family situation in a positive manner. So one of the few things that he attempted was to start a business, whereby this was something that seemed promising. It put him in a position whereby he was in the position whereby he was able to buy a van, get some few equipment, and to start off this business. So the good thing is he had some capital to start this business, and more on it later. Another thing which is quite typical, especially with the guys on these types of episodes, is he bought cars, in other words assets. Once again, there's no point if you're going to be buying an asset and you don't have a proper and economically beneficial use for those assets, because at the end of the day you are just transferring cash into depreciable assets, which end up costing you in terms of managing them, running them, and so on. So yeah, focusing on the positives, he bought some assets. He bought a car and a van, a truck, and all those type of assets. And yeah, that is the positive side of it, but we all know that the negative is the one that takes over here. We'll address that in what went wrong. So what went wrong is just so much, right? To begin with, he bought cars while he was still in school, basically disturbing the peace. Didn't have a good, relationship at school, and the mere fact that he had money and everything made things worse, and to the point where he actually got suspended. And for me, this just shows his attitude towards education, of which I'll address a little bit later in this segment, was the key to unlocking all sorts of bad things that followed as he received that money. Another bad thing that happened was he did get financial advice when he received the money, and this point I want to take this opportunity to express to you guys that channels like mine, or assistance like from people like myself, or even at banks and so on, just getting financial advice is not the savior that you will need when you have money and so on. Financial advice works best when you buy into the advice. So in other words, you can receive all types of advice, but if you don't buy into that advice and follow the plan and the requirements of that advice, you might as well just not even dare. Because at the end of the day, advice is only useful in the way that you actually use it. And if it resonates with you, it makes sense with you, those are the best financial plans or financial advice that you can go with. So for me, I say this because I keep on saying, because at the end of the day, I can speak certain financial solutions to a high net worth client that I will definitely not mention to a low income client. Why? For instance, we talk about things like savings. Savings in general is good, but some people don't need savings. They need income generation or generating solutions. Because why? The income that they have is so little that there's no disposable income left. There is no room to literally put money on the side. It's just a matter of that money is for survival. So that person does not need to save. They need to generate more income. Just simple as that. So I'm just putting this or saying this to give you guys context, because someone like Bongani, who lives, in rural KZN and is used to cash, is not used to all sorts of, money. To him, money is money. So to get financial advice is something that he probably felt it was good. Probably was advised by his close acquaintances that it's the right thing to do. But he's not going to follow through with it, because at the end of the day, he's going to rely too much on what the bank is telling him what to do. He's not buying into the plan because he doesn't necessarily believe in it. And that's why a lot of these type of people, because they have received so much money, they do agree to go along with investments. But having worked in that environment of dealing with investments and stuff, I know people like this do agree because they don't need the money then. But they're gonna come back. That money is not gonna last 12 months with the financial institute. It's not gonna achieve its maturity date. It will never. Why? Because once the money that they have with them ends, they're gonna start coming to the investment. And that's why we are taught not to sell particular type of products that are long term, meaning long term in the sense that it's more than 12 months. You need to give these type of these type of people solutions that are more flexible, so that you can, when they come take their money, they don't have to pay major penalties, but they can get something. But the downside of that is you don't get the benefit of compound interest, because you are not giving that money enough time to grow and be able to actually do what it's supposed to do. So at the end of the day, you just lose. So I'm just saying this, yes, they got financial advice, but that financial advice is only as good as you understand and implement it. And unfortunately, he definitely did not understand what he needed to do with it. And obviously, he kept on withdrawing bit by bit, because at the end of the day, financial institutions don't necessarily make it easy for you to withdraw. So obviously, you withdraw bit by bit because you keep on going back and forth, and probably the financial advisor that they were working with was advising them like, hey, don't take out all the money, because they're also protecting their business. So he kept on taking bit by bit, but at the end of the day, the eventual thing happens, that money is all gone. Another thing that went wrong is this guy's drinking and driving. Drinking and driving is totally not advisable. It's totally wrong. It's totally, dangerous, guys. Please don't do it. But yeah, in Bogani's case, unfortunately, he fell into the trap and it cost him so much. Because at the end of the day, for me, I get, as I'm watching this video, I get a sense that this guy was sort of like a public delinquent. Like, many people didn't like him, and as much as people liked him for his money, and he was just in so many situations. For me, he just made too much noise, right? He was a person that was poor. All of a sudden, you're doing all these things, and being rich and just being frivolous with everything that you're doing ends up putting him in a situation where people just hate you. They don't like you. And I'm not saying that he caused it by himself and he deserves it, but I'm just saying that, guys, when you get money, be discreet. Spend money with your family, treat your family, take care of them, and build it, because those are the people that have your best intentions at heart. And as I say this, unfortunately, it led him to situations where people were watching him, people were observing his actions, and they saw that this is a reckless person. They can find ways to extort him, and his guy was extorted out of two situations, whereby first situation, he was scammed into buying a car, of which that car they bought was later claimed as stolen, and he bought a van. That van was stolen. He had a case, and then there was another situation where he was scammed and basically extorted, and the cops were saying that for him to get released, he needs to drop the charges. So just a whole lot of corruption. And for me, I don't really want to get too much into that, because at the end of the main thing is, guys, do not make noise in a way that people end up devising ways to extort you, simply because they know that you have the money, they know that you are not a sensible person. And what that leads me to is the ultimate big thing that went wrong in this case, is that his lack of education made him vulnerable. His lack of education put him in situations that he had to depend on people, and as he trusted those people, it put him in situations where these people took advantage of him. And not just people, his own father took advantage of him as well. So it just goes to show, guys, the disrespect towards education, it's something that you are planting seeds in the future that are just going to be very bitter for you to engage with. Because at the end of the day, the way he treated school manifested in his future. Yes, we are subject to what we are presented on the show, but for me, all I'm just saying is, whether it's formal education, any type of education, whatever the case may be, respect the education that you have access to. Use it to your advantage, because whatever that you learn, you're going to need it for your future. And for me, I just wished he went in that direction in terms of education, just using it. I'm not saying you should have passed or anything, because not everybody is gifted with the ability to pass whatever educational journey they go through. But once again, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Any education is good education, because it would have helped him to become bit by bit more independent, and not be so vulnerable to people that at the end of the day, people used him and they just had his way around with him. So yeah, guys, as I conclude, the main thing that I would like for you guys to pick up from this video is the lack of education and how it makes you vulnerable to people that are just out there waiting to prey on your your blessings, waiting to prey on just what you have. And people don't mind, they'll take everything from you regardless of what they think of you. Like, it's just inhumane, right? So I mean, if you really think about it as well, how he totally benefited people out there, and the very same people that actually took care of them, his aunt and his grandmother, he did not do much. I mean, they were crying. It's just a sad situation. I really hope some breakthrough comes their way, because I mean, it's just so sad. I mean, so many people go through such situation, and most of them do not become lucky enough to get any type of amount, like about 10,000, yet alone 1 point something million. So it's just unfortunate, but at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? You get dealt with, it's life, it is what it is. And I really hope that you guys can understand that education, with online courses and so many free information available out there, so long as you are looking for it and being intentional about it, you can put yourself in a little bit of a better situation as life progresses and you sort of make your way through it. But yeah, I mean, in this case, education put him in a very vulnerable state. He neglected his family, drinking and driving, particularly alcohol just really messed up his life. And once again, for me, education and emotional intelligence go hand in hand. So the less that you're educated about, whether it's formal or informal, the less emotional intelligence you have, and that makes you vulnerable. So really hope, guys, yeah, that lesson really resonates with you guys and you find ways to really curb that habit and manage your money better and have a better future. But other than that, guys, thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, comment down below just to engage. Really appreciate you watching. See you on the next one.